This program is sponsored in part by the National Catholic Society of Foresters. Hello and welcome to Looking at Social Justice. I'm Jim Grant, and it's my privilege today to be having another program with you about social justice and an issue that is very important, not only during January, which is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, but all year long, every day. Human trafficking is a cancer in our world. Today we have a very special guest, Nu Lee, who comes to us from the Hmong TV Network 32.6 as an anchor news reporter. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, Nu, and why it is you asked to do this program with me today.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. Hi, my name is Nu Lee, and I'm with Hmong TV. I'm a news anchor there and reporter. As of today, I see and I know that human trafficking is a major issue right now in our community, and that the community should be aware and should be informed and should know what are their rights and how they can be helped and prevent from being human trafficked. And a little bio about myself. I used to do a TV talk show on Channel 26 for the longest time, and I'm an anchor news for Hmong TV for the longest time too, for almost 10 years, and currently I'm a news anchor with Hmong TV, and I love doing my job, and I hope that today you guys will enjoy the show with me and Jim.
Thank you very much, Nu. Catholic Relief Services is the leading Catholic presence in 99 countries across the globe. One issue that they deal with globally is obviously human trafficking. They've created a very powerful but brief video called A Crime Against Humanity. I think it would be a good way to begin our program is to see what Catholic Relief Services wants to share with us about this cancer on the human globe, human trafficking.
It is almost impossible to imagine that human trafficking still exists. It's even more shocking that more than 20 million people are now enslaved worldwide, more than any time in history. Since 2000, Catholic Relief Services has carried out 145 projects to combat the human trafficking that feeds slavery. CRS uses a strategy of prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnership to protect highly vulnerable populations. Traffickers prey upon people who feel desperate. Impoverished parents may be lured into selling their children with promises of jobs or education for the youth. Young people are tempted by ads for a better future, only to find themselves forced into harsh labor or the commercial sex trade. For those who escape trafficking, the psychological scars are deep. Many survivors face serious health problems, stigma, and discrimination. Through outreach and education, we make people aware of the dangers of trafficking. We work with schools, community groups, children's clubs, and the media to teach families to stay safe. The most effective prevention is to help families become more self-sufficient, so traffickers hold no sway. We help with school supplies and small loans for local businesses, so youth can stay in school and vulnerable young women can earn an income. For those who have escaped the horrors of trafficking, we provide temporary housing, healthcare, and psychosocial support using local counselors who can help heal the wounds of their experience. We train law enforcement officials on the importance of prosecuting trafficking crimes and hire victims advocates for those who have been trafficked. Working through our partners, we push for new laws to prevent future crimes. In rural communities, we educate local leaders that trafficking is a serious crime and how to stop it. But we can't do this alone. Through partners around the world, we help governments carry out anti-trafficking campaigns, teach educators about child rights and labor laws, and support law enforcement agencies to do their jobs more effectively. Human trafficking is a crime against humanity, but by working together, we can make a difference. At Catholic Relief Services, we work tirelessly to ensure a future where no one will know the pain of enslavement, so that all can reach their full potential.
I want to thank Catholic Relief Services for all they're doing all over the world in so many ways, but especially right now to end human trafficking. And I'd like to ask Nu Lee if you'd begin with us to define, if you could, just what is human trafficking.
Well, human trafficking is the recruiting, transporting, and it forces you, or it brings you into a trapment, into sex, labor by force, and fraud. For example, they would tell you that they want to find a job for you or promise you a better life. And also, human trafficking is a federal crime.
There's, I guess, a lot of different ways that people can be trafficked. So what would be the most common forms that in this country and across the world people could be enslaved in trafficking?
The types of trafficking that right now is most common into our community is labor trafficking. Labor trafficking is the promising that you'll find a better job, and besides, they recruit you. It doesn't matter if you live in the Central Valley or other countries, it's international. These kind of labor trafficking could be something that, for example, if you're promised to have a better job, they'll take you to that job, but then usually it's not to a job where they'll lock you up, they'll make you into a sex slave, and there's many other factors that comes into it. And also, Jim, as we were talking, what are other traffickings that are involved when there's three major trafficking recruitments that they have?
The other ways that there may be trafficking could be, I suppose, sex trafficking and child trafficking, domestic trafficking. Why would those be other ways, and how would that be happening in this country?
What the domestic trafficking is when you live with your employee. For example, if I was living in Mexico, if I come here to the United States and I live with my employer, they will make me work overtime, night and day, without rest or without break, and they'll pay me very little. Sometimes they don't need to pay me at all. So that's considered to be domestic trafficking.
Now, money seems to be at the heart of this. They say that love of money is the root of all evil. So could you help us see where human trafficking fits in the global market for being such a lucrative business?
Well, as you and I understand, as of today's society, drug is the number one, 2 is arms, and 3 is human trafficking. Because human trafficking is so big right now over the world, internationally too. It's because per year they make 150 billion per year. So this is a tragic problem right now in the Central Valley.
Besides the money issue, what are some other underlying causes that really make human trafficking so dominant in the world?
Well, today in the Central Valley, as you know, all over the world, it's due to poverty. Poverty where the families are poor. There's lack of education, lack of support. It's not only poverty that causes human trafficking, it's the economic, the political factors, there's corruptions. There's so many factors that falls into it. Also, if you're in international or other country, it's all lack of human rights too. There's so many factors that could cause human trafficking. And of course, you know, most of all, they will promise you to a better life, to a better job.
Is there such a thing, Nu, that we call a profile? We profile people for different reasons. We see that there's a common denominator. Regarding human trafficking, what might be the demographic? What would be the profile?
Well, right now, the profile that as being profiled as a victim to be human trafficked, these are the profiles such as poverty. You're looking for a job, there's no money. Isolation from family, for example, social networks too, like you're not with your family, you're like in another city or another state. Separation from your country, that's another factor too. Drug addiction, you're a runaway, you're homeless, you're sleeping on the streets. Sexually, physically, you're abused or incest within your own family.
So you've named off so many categories. It seems like it could be anywhere, anytime, and we could be actually seeing sex slaves or labor slaves in our streets. I say that because there was an article, a wonderful series, wonderful in the sense of it exploded in front of us. Sex slaves are all around us, and you may know some of them. it made us aware 2 years ago in this series in the Bee that so many different people, as you named off those profiles, we have people living in our city who are probably being trafficked.
Yes, as you have may noted on that situation here in the Central Valley here in Fresno alone, the FBI stated or know that the biggest human trafficking is here locally in Fresno, especially in the 99 and Freeway 99 and Belmont area there. That's where all these stations or all the hubs are at, in here in Fresno.
So if we have a profile for a person who could be vulnerable to trafficking, not that they're guilty of you are a victim, not a guilty person if you are trafficked. What would be the profile for a trafficker? Is there anything that is similar among traffickers?
Well, with the offender, they profile the traffickers. What they profile is that because they have criminal history or they have federal histories, and they cannot find a job. So the only way for them to actually have money or income coming in is by human trafficking, and so that's another income that or option that they have left when you have a criminal history.
So once you've been trafficked, which is, there are so many, as you said, causes why you may be, why is it so difficult to escape? Because it would seem to someone who isn't being trafficked, wow, can't they just like leave it? Like they're trafficked, they don't want to do it. Why is it hard to escape from that life?
Well, Jim, that's a very good question because as you guys may know, it falls into a lot of factors because one, it comes from religion, family, and belief too. That's the main factor too. The second thing it comes around is the being violent. You are a victim and you are in that situation. So you don't know how to help yourself to get out because you just don't want any problems. And besides that, if you're undocumented, it's really hard too. And the most important thing is that the victims, do they trust the police? Do they trust the judicial system? And all comes down to, can we trust them? And can they actually do the job for us to arrest these people? So if the police can't really do anything, or if they don't believe us, or if they feel the system is failing them, what's the point of telling? So that's just the main point right here.
It seems that statistics don't ever give us a full picture because many people may not be admitting that they're being trafficked or being understood as being trafficked, or also registering as a trafficked person. But there might be 21 million, at least 21 million people as we speak being trafficked in our country. But in our country, what would be the center states? There are several ones that are really high on the list and they have the major numbers.
Yes, as you know, human trafficking is domestic and a global crime, federally crime. But in the human trafficking, what the major hubs are in the United States are Texas, Florida, New York, and California. Of course, human trafficking in California is a major hub because of the international. It's like Los Angeles, Sacramento, and San Francisco, and San Diego because of the borders, the international, and the hubs, and of course the ships and the oceans. So everything is just like we are like right in the center of everything.
So regarding the cities of Los Angeles and San Diego, what is it about Los Angeles in particular that would make it be such a center? Why that city would be the, you might say, focal point at the southern part of our state? What is so important about LA?
Well, like we mentioned, California is a major hub, but Los Angeles is the border or is the location where all the human traffickings are most recurred because as in Los Angeles, sex traffickers, they make $49,000 per victim. And besides that, human trafficking, because of the diverse population, the international connections, and the involvement with the fashion industry. So those are the main hubs. But as you and I were talking, Jim, you mentioned about San Diego too.
Yeah. San Diego winds up being not only a major border city with Mexico, and we think of it usually in terms of immigration. We find it as a border city. It has its crossing point. It also is a place where you'll go and visit the detention center in San Isidro, and it is a major news item regarding undocumented people. But we don't always connect that it is also a major center for what is human trafficking. That not only do we have people coming through that border to become working here in the Central Valley as farm workers, but they're also coming as trafficked people. So this is something that we're trying to almost make people more aware of, that things that are immigration related are also human trafficking related. These border cities, Florida, Texas, New York, and California are all centers where, because of the industries that are there, because of the largeness of cities, and because of the connection with international centers, we are having those states terribly afflicted with human trafficking.
Wow, it's so interesting to know. Well, Jim, I noticed that we've been talking about the Super Bowl. To my understanding, Super Bowl is just a football game, or just a game that everybody across the country enjoys. So I know that you mentioned a little bit about San Francisco. Can you explain that?
So what happens during Super Bowl, which is a sad underbelly to what's already a complicated event for a lot of reasons. But the amount of human trafficking that is going to be occurring during a Super Bowl week, it is something that is an annual tragedy, and that is why there is a mobilization, especially during Super Bowl week, to make people more aware of how many people are going to be visiting a major city over a major event with lots of money. Again, it comes down to the economy, to be able to find themselves involved in human trafficking, knowing it or not. They are going to be probably dealing with trafficked people. Now, regarding all this phenomenon of human trafficking and where they are in our country, the other question would be, from where do we know these victims are coming from? It is a global phenomenon for sure, but in this country, where would most of our imported trafficked people come from?
Well, Jim, thank you for that question too. Today's traffic comes from Latin America because the Mexico and United States borders. The Mexico and United States border has been one of the major hubs for human trafficking due to gangs, networks, and secret routes through the border. And as Jim, you were talking about Mexico too. Can you mention that, or can you describe that more?
The idea of Mexico turns out to be, in our minds, immigration. But there's two other words that have to be put in the mix. Is the cartels, and the cartels are not just about drugs and arms, gangs, but also about human trafficking, because it's a major money business for them. And it turns out that because of the border with Mexico, we are having a tremendous influx of humanly trafficked people from Mexico. But there are three other countries that are also on our radar. When you mentioned Latin America, that would include the triangle of El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, where we know there are so many people who are so desperate to come from those war-torn countries to come to be in the United States. Many of them, because of the coyotes that are going to bring them and get them from their country through Mexico to be at the border to hopefully come to live here. But they will come under ownership of a coyote. They'll be victims even as they are arriving in the United States for bills they owe to their escape. And many of them will find themselves trafficked by the coyotes in work that they would never want to do, and, as you say, be deceived as to what it is that they are being invited to do. All of this as part of what is border business, which is big money.
Mm-hmm. So, Jim, what you're trying to tell me, that to my understanding, is that a lot of the Mexican immigrants, they are misleading or misled that they are just going to be, brought into the United States and they have to pay certain sort of money, but instead, they're not like, they're being used as a mule here, bringing drugs in, and then after that, they still owe these coyotes money by being trafficked.
This is the phenomenon that, if we can only make ourselves more aware of it and then decide what are we going to do about it. It's easy to do a program to talk about it, but what we need to do is decide in this new year how we'll address this increasing phenomenon. Now, we'll kind of like reiterate something about the two most vulnerable groups that are in the United States, that are in California in particular. Who would be our most vulnerable victims of human trafficking right now, Anu?
Well, it's sadly to say that more vulnerable victims will be the migrants, and migrants such as like from China, from Mexico, from all the countries that they don't know what they're getting themselves into when they come to the United States. And second of all, it's undocumented migrants, because why? They cannot make the report if they're being human trafficked, being abused, neglected, or whatever the situation is. Second, and most importantly, is because how can they make such reports when they're undocumented? They don't even have the rights to be here in the country in the first place. So these are the situations that these kind of migrants face every day in our Central Valley.
Pope Francis has made a major campaign on so many fronts during his papacy so far. One of them is human trafficking. He has said at many occasions, the trade in human beings, a modern form of slavery, violates the God-given dignity of many of our brothers and sisters, and it constitutes a true crime against humanity. Human trafficking is an open wound on the body of contemporary society and a scourge upon the body of Christ. What would you say, Nu, would be the prevalence in California for this newest form of slavery? Just how prevalent is it in our society today?
Well, in our society today, it's really not, it's something that needs to be aware of, and it's something that the society needs to be aware of. And of course, you and I, we try our best to make sure that the society is safe, and I'm happy that the Catholic Church is willing to help us out.
The United States Catholic Conference of Bishops is very, very committed to this issue, because it is something that we need to stand up for, and that is what we are going to be asking our community as we, not only during January of 2020, but all during the year, mobilize to work with many groups in the city that are doing some very, very important work on human trafficking. We do have a list that we'd like to show people about certain agencies here in the Valley that are able to be reached by phone or by website or by email address. We are going to make that list available to those that are listening. We'll be glad if you would be in touch with me. That would be at the Diocese of Fresno, Jim Grant, the Director of Social Justice Ministry. Our number there, 559-488-7463. But right now, why don't we show you, for those that can see it, a list of some of the major agencies working to not only prevent human trafficking, but to protect victims and to prosecute traffickers. Would you like to begin, Nu, mentioning some of these groups, beginning with the first?
Yes. The first one is Beauty for Ashes. The phone number is 559-363-0299. You can reach them at their email, beautyforashes@gmail.com.
The second group is Breaking the Chains, 559-803-4720. And they could be reached at info@beautyforashes.org. btcfresno.org.
The next one is Central Valley Against Human Trafficking. The phone number is 559-263-1378. Email is sarah.johnston, JOHNSTON, @fresnoeoc.org.
Another very good agency that we work with is Central Valley Justice Coalition. The local number, 559-222-7642. Jessica Pittman can be reached at jessica@cvjusticecoalition.com.
Another one would be Central La Familia. Please be aware that they speak multiple languages such as Spanish and Hmong. Please call them at 1-877-294-3772. Please go on the website at www.centrallafamilia.org.
If you need crime victim assistance, there actually is a number and a website. Crime Victim Assistance Center, 559-600-2822. The website, www.co.fresno.ca.us/CVAC.
The next one is Department of Social Services, 559-255-8320.
I'd like to jump to Kern County, where we have two different sources for reaching. One of them would be the Kern County Coalition Against Human Trafficking. That is reached at 303-261-2948, and the person is Phil at gazley.org.
The next one is Made for Them, 559-441-0327. Email at info@madeforthem.org.
And one last one I'd like to mention is Sister Marie Frances Schrofer, happens to be reached at her Office of Social Justice in the Kern County, 661-664-4563, and Sister's email, smfsccdf@hotmail.com. I want to thank you, Nu, for being with us today. This first program on human trafficking. We'll be back in the month of January with more programs about this important issue. Till next time, God bless.